Get that started. Wonderful. Thank you, Liz. And this session, as well as the rest of the Sustainable Landscaping series, will be available on our ANJAC YouTube channel. You can find us there at ANJAC Views, and you will find other sessions that we hold throughout the year as well. So feel free to take a look around. You can subscribe to our channel using the camera on your cell phone and this QR code here, or you could just go right to YouTube and type in ANJAC Views. We will also be sending the link for this session out to everyone who registered. So I know most of you are friends of ANJAC, but I want to just remind folks of our mission is really here to help you. We are your resource organization. We are here to support the 350 or so environmental commissions throughout the state of New Jersey. We also provide support to open space committees, green teams, elected officials, county commissioners, and we also do work at the state level, at the governor's office, the legislature, and the agencies, so DEP, DOT, DCA, the whole alphabet soup of agencies that we have here in New Jersey. We have a number of events coming up in June. June is very, very busy. We know that sleepy summertime kicks in July and August. So we're trying to get a whole lot in June for you. If you missed some of these, remember you can go to our YouTube channel and check those out in the recording. So go ahead and register for these if they're of interest to you, and you will get the link in your email for that as well. So you can check out our programs on the homepage of our website under the calendar app, or you can use this QR code here and pull them right up on your phone. So we look forward to seeing you. I do also want to call out that we are scheduling programs in the fall now. So we've got September 16th, how to participate in environmental justice hearings, and October 10th is Save the Date for Environmental Congress. We will have some additional sessions in July and maybe one in early August, but they're just not set yet. So keep checking back on our social media and our website to find out additional programming. And with that, I just want to say thank you to all of you for being municipal members of ANJAC. If you have not yet renewed your EC membership in ANJAC, we encourage you to do so because there is still lots of time in the calendar year to enjoy the benefits of membership. So again, you can use this QR code, or you can go right to anjac.org/donate and check around there for our different types of membership. We have individual membership, municipal membership, and business membership. And so anything and everything you can do to help support ANJAC so we can be here for you, we really appreciate. We are a nonprofit organization, and we rely on donors like you to keep us going. Certainly grant funding and the number of things on our plate these days is growing. So we really appreciate all of your support so that we can be here for the more than 5,000 environmental commissioners that are active throughout the state. So with that, I want to say thank you for being here tonight. And I want to welcome Chris Abrupta from the Rutgers Water Resource Center, the Cooperative Extension, for being here with us tonight. And he is going to speak to us about sustainable landscaping. We do a lot of work with Chris, and we have for well more than a decade now. And many of the projects that we work on together are green infrastructure projects that help to manage previously unmanaged stormwater. And these projects are done in cooperation with environmental commissions throughout the state. And Chris and his team do the engineering and the project oversight for them. And I think one of the really great things is, in addition to doing these individual projects, Chris is training up a whole new generation of engineers so that they are available to share their knowledge and manage projects with the most cutting edge information that we have, so we can infiltrate water, recharge groundwater, clean up the water, and provide sustainable pollinator habitat. So with that, I will stop, and Chris, turn it over to you.
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. So can you see those slides? Is that okay?
Man, if you can put them in presentation view, we could see them full screen.
How's that? Is that better?
It's thinking about it. There it goes. Yep. Perfect.
Good, huh?
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Jen. Let me just jump right in. First of all, I want to talk to you a little bit about who we are. Rutgers Cooperative Extension has been around for about 100 years. Rutgers University is a land-grant college for the state of New Jersey. What that means is part of our mission is to give back to the state, to really extend the knowledge university out to the people of the state to help solve their problems. When it first started, it was primarily around agriculture. As we started growing more homes and less corn in New Jersey, it started being more about urban and suburban. I run the Water Resources Program. This is our mission statement. What we're trying to do is we're trying to help towns implement practical science-based solutions to their stormwater problems. And really what that means is solutions that we know to work and we know are inexpensive, because we know nobody has any money. So trying to stop the flooding, improve water quality, stop the harmful algal blooms, all those great things. So today I've been asked to talk about sustainable landscaping, which is something I'm very interested in. This is the definition I like to use, focusing on creating and maintaining outdoor spaces in a way that minimizes environmental impact and maximizes efficiency. So, that's what we're trying to do here, focusing a lot on creating biodiversity, long-term ecological health, native plants, conserving water, all these different components of this. So there's really kind of 6 principles to sustainable landscaping. The first one that I focus mostly on is water conservation. We also have reducing chemical use, native plant selection, biodiversity, soil health, and waste reduction. I'm going to touch on a few of these now. And I think what people need to understand is there's a lot of benefits associated with sustainable landscaping. And one of the number one benefits is it reduces pollution. Okay? Conserves water, and when you're conserving water, you're also conserving energy, and supports biodiversity. That turf grass that we have in our front lawns, that's just one species that's not even really native to New Jersey, mostly it's Kentucky bluegrass, really does not support a lot of biodiversity, right? There's cost savings associated with sustainable landscaping, lower water bills, less fertilizer, less pesticides, and then it can also result in reduced maintenance costs. Certainly can enhance aesthetics, and I'll show you some pictures about that. And when you're enhancing aesthetics, you're also improving property values. And one of the big benefits too is we worry a lot about now, because as we go through our lives, we're discovering more and more things that we've been exposed to over years, and now there's a PFAS that I have to worry about from the Teflon pans that I've been using for years, and there's lead in the water pipes, and a lot of things come up that we didn't realize were problems. So one thing about sustainable landscaping, it's more natural, more healthy, and definitely reduces your exposure to harmful chemicals that can really hurt you in the long term. So let's start with water conservation. Critical component of sustainable landscaping, talking about efficiency of water use. We don't want to waste water in New Jersey, even though we're a water-rich state. We want to be very careful about that. As climate change continues to move forward in New Jersey, we're going to see much more intense storm events followed by longer periods of drought. And we saw that last summer. We had like 8 weeks at the end of the summer of no rain and no water, and our lawns died, our plants died, and we had to spend a lot of time watering those things. So thinking about water conservation is very important. Rainwater harvesting is very important, and smart irrigation is a big component of that, right? So we think a little bit about smart irrigation where it's more precision watering. We tell people to water their plants early in the morning or in the evening. If you water things in the middle of the day, it just really evaporates the water. So timing of when you deliver the water, making sure that you're not, it rained this morning, so I'm not going to be watering this afternoon. So understanding the soil moisture is very important, right? Understanding the water forecast. Am I going to water this evening if it's going to rain tonight? You need to kind of understand those things, right? So the scheduling of water and smart irrigation systems allows you to do that in a much more effective way. And because the system is smart and it's automated, it reduces the need for a lot of maintenance. I'm trying to, my elderly mom, I'm trying to grow grass at her house, and there's one bare spot, and I find myself watering it all the time. And I kind of wish I had some sort of smart irrigation system so it would water on its own and know when it needs water, instead of me going out there and trying to make that judgment. Smart irrigation leads to certainly healthier plants. And there is an economic and environmental benefit associated with it. So there's different components of smart irrigation. These soil moisture sensors, which can be pretty expensive in certain cases. In some cases, they can be rather inexpensive. So these things will actually measure the moisture in the soil and tell you if you do need to water, right? Weather stations are really cool. Some people have these hooked up to their sensors. So your irrigation system around your house will know if it's raining and not turn on, or anticipate the amount of moisture in the air and realize that we don't need to water today. So these are things that we have. Different irrigation zones is very important. Different plants need different amounts of water. So understanding the water needs of the plant, all this stuff can be kind of programmed into these smart irrigation systems. And the other thing that we see a lot of and a lot more of is these drip irrigation systems and these very fine sprinkler systems that deliver just the right amount of water in certain instances. So you can see here in the upper left-hand corner is one of your soil moisture sensors, and you have this weather station in the center. You can see the clouds and the temperature on there, and it's watering a certain time of day. Now the bottom picture you wouldn't even realize, but inside these flower beds are soaker hoses. So they're kind of drip irrigation in there that's really keeping these plants healthy and watered, but also minimizing the use of water in that system, right? Now, one thing we think about a lot when we think about water conservation, we think about rainwater harvesting. So a lot of people have these rain barrels, and you see all different kinds of rain barrels here in the picture. Things you can buy at Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart, things you can make on your own. These barrels on the lower right and the one in the center with the flowers growing out of the top are barrels that were made out of old pickle barrels. So we used to do a program at Rutgers. We'd get 1,000 pickle barrels delivered. We'd hose them out, clean them out, and we do rain barrel workshops. And people would come in, they would build a rain barrel, they would take it home with them, and they would hook it up, and they would have that for the summer into the fall. Hopefully, they remember to empty it in the winter. Also becomes a big ice cube. So. And this is Amy Rowe, one of our environmental county agents up in Passaic County and Essex County, and she's showing a little bit more complex system. This is what we call a cistern, and this holds about 530 gallons of water. It's a slimline system, so it fits right next to the building. So we use a lot of these at school grounds and different places like that where we need extra water, and then harvesting the rainwater from the roof, and it leaves a lot of space around it, so it doesn't take up a lot of sidewalk space. Very, very effective system. Okay. So the one other big thing that we think about with sustainability is reducing the chemical use, right? And one thing to do, best way to do that is by using lots of native plants. Native plants require less fertilizer, less pesticides. So these are things that are good for the area. We use a lot of compost. Compost will hold moisture in the soil and slowly deliver nutrients through the soil. So that compost is high in nitrogen and phosphorus. And when it's placed in your flower bed, it continuously feeds the nutrients that the plants need to grow. Okay. We use a lot of mulch in our systems because the mulch will hold the water and keep it moist without the soil drying out and the plants drying out. So by using mulch, we require less watering, and that also requires less chemical use because you don't have a lot of pests getting in there. There's another thing called integrated pest management, which really focuses on, specific pests without harming these beneficial insects or wildlife. So we're not going out and spraying everything. We're identifying, oh, there's this beetle on my plants. How do I get rid of that beetle in a very effective way without using chemical pesticides? So these are things that we do with integrated pest management. Integrated pest management is actually required to be used on school grounds in New Jersey. They're not allowed to spray a lot of chemicals around the school grounds, which is really nice. And Rutgers has a great integrated pest management program, a lot to do with the farms throughout New Jersey and the nursery industry. We do a lot of work with the nursery industry in the state. So native plant selection is very important. Great environmental benefits. There's a great palette of native plants that we have in the state that can be blooming all year long. We have the blue flag iris that comes out early in the year, and the coneflower that comes out later. Actually, my coneflowers are starting to bloom now. You've got things like the cardinal flower that blooms in August. So it can be very beautiful, very beneficial for insects, birds, and other wildlife. Certainly pollinator habitat. We see a lot of plants being used for that. We do have a threatened species of monarch butterfly now. I think a lot of that has to do with all the forest that was burned in Canada a few years ago. But so this is another thing that we worry about, is providing habitat for species like that. Native plants are low maintenance. You know, you don't have to fertilize them all the time. You put a Japanese red maple in front of your house, you got to spend a lot of time taking care of that for that thing to survive. You know, you put a regular red maple from New Jersey out there, it's going to thrive, right? There's ecological considerations that we have. You know, plants provide food and shelter for different species. Um, you know, there's certain plants that attract the hummingbirds, and we've built gardens actually just to attract hummingbirds in some cases. Um, and native plants can be beautiful. You don't have to have some exotic plant to make your landscape look vibrant. Lots of colors and textures, and lots of blooming times. Specific examples are shown here. We got purple coneflower, serviceberry trees, flowering dogwoods. Actually, Rutgers has a scarlet night dogwood now. They made a hybrid, and it has a beautiful red flower on it for Rutgers, and they were selling them for, I don't know, like 60 or $70 at Rutgers Day. So it's very, very nice. And then we also think about how we design things. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, okay? One of the last things I want to talk about is soil health. This is very important. Everything starts with the soil. Okay, so if you have a healthy soil, you'll have a healthy garden, you'll have a healthy landscape. I was talking to somebody a couple Fridays ago, and she was showing me photographs of a soccer field where they were adding compost to the soccer field, and they made the lawn so rich, so thick, that they were able to convince the town that maybe we don't need to go to artificial turf. Maybe we can have a nice, healthy lawn that kids can play on every day without totally destroying it. So having the right soil and a healthy soil is very, very important, and that really helps out quite a bit. So a healthy soil will retain the water, will release nutrients over time. There won't be a lot of erosion with a healthy soil, right? It'll stay in place. And one thing about a healthy soil is it'll also store carbon. So we worry about climate change, whether you believe it's real or not. It's happening in New Jersey. And what winds up happening is we have to find a way to capture that carbon. So how do we do that? Well, we capture carbon in plant material, so the leaves and the trees will capture that, but it also gets stored in the soil, right? So large amounts of soil, large amounts of carbon can be stored in these very healthy soils. So that can really, really help with climate change, right? So, one thing we think about when we think about soil is minimizing the disturbance of soil. You know, avoiding practices like too much tilling and destroying the structure. Soil is not just dirt. There's microbes in there that help that soil survive. So be very careful about that. And then maximizing soil coverage, right? So having, you know, if you're a farmer, we tend to put down cover crops over the winter, and those cover crops at annual rye will hold the soil in place so it doesn't blow away or wash away in the winter. We use mulch around our landscape to do the same thing. We never, my program, we never use anything other than triple shredded hardwood mulch. We never use any dyed mulch or any special chemical induced mulch. We're always worried that someday we'll find out that was bad material, but so we just use a natural mulch all the time, and that protects the soil from washing away. Um, so there's a wide variety of native plants and non-native species that can create resilient landscapes. Also, they need that diverse soil organisms. Adding organic matter, like I said, compost of soil is very important. And then reducing chemical use. You know, a lot of you don't need to fertilize your lawn. Do a soil test. Take a soil sample, take it to the Rutgers Cooperative Extension Office, and $10 or $15 to analyze the sample. I'll tell you exactly what you need on your lawn. Maybe you need a little bit of nitrogen. Maybe you need a little bit of phosphorus, but you don't probably need to go to Home Depot and buy the 5-step Scots and apply it all over your lawn, all over your sidewalk, all over your road, because that's not only going to be a waste of money, it's also going to damage the waterways when it washes in there. So, and the other thing is watering wisely. You know, how many times have you driven through a development when it's raining and seen the sprinklers on? You know, a bad, bad, bad idea, right? So we want to do that smart irrigation. We want to be careful about overwatering, and we want to really think about conserving the water that we use, right? So, These are some rain gardens that we had built. This is so a rain garden is a shallow landscape depression, and it's designed to capture rainwater from a rooftop or a sidewalk or a roadway. It's planted with native plants, and it is one of the hallmarks of a sustainable landscaping feature, right? Because now you're capturing water, you're maintaining water, and you're really growing something, a native landscape that's very important. So we were in Rowe several years ago, and we had a landscape architect, Toby Horton, working with us, and he designed some really cool rain gardens. Toby was big into rocks, right? So we had a lot of rock rain gardens, but you can see this, the water's coming from the downspout. Let me see if I can turn this on here. Um, the water comes from this downspout in the back and gets dumped into this garden, and it fills this garden up, and it comes down this channel, and we'll water all the plants in this garden as they continue to grow, and you can see it here. Another picture of it, right? There's a lot of less grass here that has to be mowed, right? And you can see it here again, right? Lots of different rock structures, give it a little character, right? So Toby would draw an image like this, and then, we would follow this the best we can out in the field, and we'd actually use some other materials too. So a lot of times you think about sustainability, we're not just thinking about the plants and the soil and the water, we're also thinking about the materials we use, right? Do we go out to Home Depot and buy all new rocks, or maybe we can reuse some of the concrete that we have. So here's some of Toby's students cracking up some concrete old concrete sidewalks. And look, they built benches out of it, and they used it throughout the entire garden. You can see here in the center, different places where they put the concrete and made some really nice structures with it. A very nice, sustainable feature, right? And this is Toby here thinking about his next garden that he's going to build, right? And then we have some more here. And you can see all native plants in here. Gorgeous garden, just landscaping, but this actually will capture the first 2 to 3 inches of water from this rooftop into this garden. So it's not just a beautiful thing, it's creating a great feature for the environment, right? And you can see here one that's fully grown, right? You can see some more here. People putting bridges on there, adding character. And what we try to encourage people to do is that, we'll come in, help you design a rain garden, you'll build a rain garden, but it's your garden. And gardens need to be taken care of. They need to be changed. Sometimes we change out plants. Sometimes we add more plants. Sometimes we add a bridge with a rabbit crossing over it. Sometimes we add some more stone in front of it. So we adapt it to what we want it to be, and we always constantly changing. And sometimes we'll take our grass and just turn it into a wildflower meadow, right? So this has been encouraged by a lot of people. Why do we need turf grass? Maybe we could take some of the turf grass and turn it into a perennial garden. I mean, that looks beautiful. Maybe you still have a little bit of lawn around the house, but that looks gorgeous, right? And here's another rain garden that was built, and the mulch hasn't been put down yet, but you can see here the water's going to come from this downspout and fill this in here, all right? And then you can see here, this is great. The homeowner had this here, and they started building out, adding more features to it. He added all these plants on the outside of it. So this became something that they can constantly play with every year. So what happens in New Jersey a lot is, we have these winters, and sometimes they're cold, sometimes they're rainy, sometimes they're nasty. But we get to March and April, and we start thinking we want to go outside, we want to do something. And this is a perfect place to start. Go out in your yard, convert your landscape into something more sustainable. So very, very important. So um, this is what we're talking about here, green solutions. And a lot of this stuff is going to be better for stormwater management, and it's also going to be for a sustainable landscape. So there's some programs out there that you can get. There's a Jersey Friendly Yards program that you can download, and that'll be able to take a look at your yard and convert that into something that is more sustainable. We have a rain garden app that you can download from the App Store. It's was developed by University of Connecticut. So you download their app, you can open it up, and you click on New Jersey, and you can design a rain garden specifically for New Jersey, specifically for your yard. We have rain garden programs that Stephen Elliott helps run for us. Um, we do educational sessions. People come and listen to me talk about a rain garden for about 45 minutes. And then there's opportunities for you to come in and we'll design a rain garden with you for your house, right? So we're doing more and more of this. We're trying to get more and more people like yourself to build these things, to think about their landscape differently, okay? It doesn't have to be turf grass all the time, getting the 5-step Scotts fertilizer. So this is something we're trying to get people to rethink, and especially our kids, if we can get the next generation thinking about how they might be able to manage their property a little differently, we'll be in great shape. Like the senior citizens who live across the street from me, they're always going to have that lawn. They're very proud of that lawn. I have when I was young, I used to take my kids and they take the dandelions, and when they would go to church across the street, I had to go on their lawn and blow the dandelion seeds on there just to annoy the neighbors. But but it doesn't have to be perfect, right? So we can change that. We can add trees, we can add plants, we can add flowers, and we can make the whole thing very sustainable. That's it. That's all I got, Jen. Am I good?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, that was great. I appreciate it. I want to share a little bit of information with folks about preservation of land in your municipality, because we hear a lot from our environmental commissioners about open space and preservation. And unfortunately, many times it's on the, oh my gosh, there's this big, horrible development warehouse that we don't want to see. And we're concerned about the habitat that is on that land and we'd like to protect it. So I want to just talk for a moment about open space funding in New Jersey, to share that with you and let you know that ANJAC is working on this at the statewide level in terms of making funds available for stewardship and sustainability. So for those of you who maybe don't remember, and we haven't been talking about it quite so vocally, there is a coalition of approximately 150 organizations, which include nonprofits, some businesses, some big corporations, and others, called New Jersey Keep It Green. And we worked for a long time standing on the shoulders of people who worked for about 30 years to secure long-term sustainable funding for New Jersey for open space, farmland, and historic preservation. And ANJAC is proud to have been at the leadership level of New Jersey Keep It Green, and I continue to serve on the strategic planning committee, or the executive committee, for New Jersey Keep It Green, which is co-chaired by Alex Ireland of New Jersey Audubon and Ed Potosnik of New Jersey LCV. So in 2014, so 11 years ago this November, New Jersey voted on the November ballot to amend the Constitution. So it's a big deal that by 66%, New Jersey voted to amend the Constitution to dedicate 6% of the corporate business tax collected annually to open space, farmland preservation, and historic preservation. By amending the Constitution, that means that no governor and no legislature can divert the funds to something else. Now, how we spend the funds on open space, farmland, historic preservation is up for conversation potentially. That goes through enabling legislation with the New Jersey legislature, but it does need to be restricted to open space, farmland, and historic preservation. And there is the opportunity for stewardship as well. That was in the constitutional language that 66% and 20 of New Jersey's 21 counties voted to approve back in 2014. What does this mean in terms of actual money? Well, it means it generates approximately $200 million annually for preservation of land in New Jersey. And so if you have spaces in your town that you think you would like to preserve, it behooves you as the Environmental Commission to have the conversation with your Open Space Committee and with your elected officials to make sure that you are keeping your ROSI up to date, your open space inventory, your prospect list, and for having conversations about preserving land. Now, there are rules and regulations on green acres, farmland, historic preservation, and matches that need to be used, and sometimes those change. But you should be having the conversation, because at a time when federal money is really scarce and we don't know how much is going to be available, this is a protected source of funding to protect New Jersey's land. Last year in 2024, there was a threat to reducing this amount of money because, and I would ask people to raise their hands if we were in the same room, to ask if anybody remembers or have heard about the corporate transit fee. And so there was a conversation with the corporate transit fee and the corporate business tax, and there was a surcharge on the corporate business tax dating back to 2018. And so that surcharge, that 2% surcharge that was levied in 2018 was going away last year to make room for the corporate transit fee. So with a corporate business tax decreasing, that would have decreased approximately $60 million annually from this fund. And what happened was New Jersey Keep It Green leadership, including myself, Ed Potosnik from NJLCV, Alex Ireland from New Jersey Audubon, and others, engaged heavily with Governor Murphy and the legislature and the media to get the word out to request that the corporate transit fee run through the corporate business tax. Therefore, we fund transportation because that's incredibly important and needed in the most densely populated state. We need better public transportation, but we also do no harm to the open space fund. And so we are thrilled that that's what happened. And so we were able to be advocates for you and your municipality to keep this corpus of funding, this $200 million whole on an annual basis, so that it is available to municipalities, nonprofits, counties to preserve land. That said, as I mentioned, it is restricted for open space, farmland, and historic preservation. That's a constitutional amendment that voters authorized in 2014. And so with open space, that includes both the Green Acres and the Blue Acres program. So Green Acres, I think we all know what that is. That's our parks that we all love that are near and dear to us. And it's also Blue Acres, so properties that are subject to or threatened to be subject to repeated flooding, to buy those properties out from a willing seller and to get people out of harm's way. Now, one of the things that I would like to see and have had conversations with state officials is to make some funds available to restore those Blue Acres properties so they can become functioning forested wetlands, functioning marshlands, and to better retain the floodwaters and filter the floodwaters. So we're still working on that because there's challenge with, do we buy all the land and worry about taking care of it later, or do we need to walk and chew gum and do both the things at the same time? And I'm sort of in the latter camp, that we need to do both things at the same time because we're getting pretty tight and there's not a lot of space to preserve in many of our counties at this point. I will say to you that with farmland preservation, this is where the largest amount of money exists at this period of time for preservation. So if you and your township think that there may be someone who owns farmland who would be willing to have the conversation about preservation, this is a really particularly good time to have that conversation with them, or to bring in your local land trust to have that conversation with them. Because an organization known as SADC, the State Agricultural Development Committee, has recently, and by recent I mean April, revised their criteria for evaluating the value of land. And so they are now able to take into consideration attributes, natural attributes of the land. So if there is a stream, if it is a prime agricultural or a prime area for infiltrating groundwater, if it has habitat or habitat potential on it. These are now attributes that are beneficial in the economic calculation of what the land is worth. Whereas before, when we were calculating the value of farmland, it was all about how many houses could you build on here? And what does that equate to? And that becomes your bottom line number for what the Farmland Preservation Program can pay. And unfortunately, what we have seen is that warehouse developers and other developers were willing to pay more than that. So farmers would tend to look at the higher valuation and go in that direction in many cases. That doesn't speak anything to their ethics or their value. It's a real challenge for them. And I know a number of farmers who were heartbroken to have to sell their land. But now, because we've changed the valuation funding formula in New Jersey to be more competitive, and there is more funding available in farmland preservation because there has been a slightly slower rate of preservation in farmland than there has been with open space and historic preservation. It's a real good time to have conversations with farmers and people who own farmland about preservation. So if you want to talk more about that, you can email us at info@anjac.org. But really the place to go is your local land trust. So think of New Jersey Conservation Foundation, DNR Greenway, Monmouth County. Sorry, they've just flown out of my head. There's Monmouth County Preservation Organization. But those who preserve land. At ANJAC, we don't preserve land, but we work on the money side of it with the legislature and the governor to make sure funds are available to municipalities, land trusts, counties, etc. And there is the smallest piece of the pie is historic preservation. And they run their grant cycles in a slightly different way. So if you're interested in historic preservation, I can put you in touch with people who kind of do that work, if you will. So with that said, I want to thank you all for being here. We do have a good amount of time for some Q&A. So if you've got questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A. And I want to remind everybody that we are a nonprofit organization and we really appreciate your support. You can find more about membership, individual, municipal, and business here with this QR code or on our website. So thank you everybody for being here. I'm going to stop sharing and see what kind of questions we might have. Also, you should note that there are some really good links in the chat about Rutgers, as well as New Jersey Keep It Green and the work that we have done there. So, Chris, I think we have been so thorough tonight that there's not one question.
Jen, there's a question in the chat, excuse me, from Allison.
Oh, please. Yes.
Allison asked Chris if you would be able to arrange a homeowner-based landscape rain garden as an EC event, or are they just training events at Rutgers?
No, we could certainly do a train. We could certainly do a training event. A lot of stuff we do is online. I think we've all found that that's a little bit easier for people to attend. And Stephen, I don't know if we have something coming up on a training for rain gardens.
Yeah, I was talking to Email and Holly today about we're coming up with a date in July, so we'll have one virtually. There's also a recording on the Pinelands Preservation Alliance website. If you're always welcome to watch that, but we will have a live session in July, and then we'll probably do one twice a month until our Lakes grant, which is up at the end of this year. So everybody's open, or everybody's able to attend the webinar, but our incentive program, which provides rebates and things like that for installing rain gardens, is specifically centered around 5 lakes in the Pinelands and 5 lakes in the Highlands right now. We are looking for funding to expand that incentive program, but yeah, stay tuned.
So if you're looking for information, check back on the ANJAC website, check my website at Rutgers, water.rutgers.edu, and you can get information that way. So, but lots of presentations coming up, right?
If you sign up on NewJerseyLandscapeMakeover.org, you'll always get the updates for upcoming webinars and programs and volunteer opportunities and everything like that on there.
Great, thanks, Stephen. If you could put that website in the chat for everyone, NewJerseyLandscapeMakeover.org, that would be great. Oh, there we go. Perfect. All right, we'll hang out for another minute and see if there's any other questions. Otherwise, I'm sure that that folks want to watch election returns tonight. So we'll,
Oh,
we'll
I
let
can't
you
wait.
go.
Yeah.
We cannot talk about that tonight. We are a nonprofit, a nonpartisan organization.
Oh, me too.
But we
Yeah.
are all human beings and pretty engaged lot of folks. So I'm sure that folks will take some interest in the returns tonight. All right, Liz, I don't see any other questions. Chris was so thorough that he covered all the bases.
Well, this is great. We should do this again next week. You know,
Awesome. Well, our next session, Sheila, do you want to give us the date for the third session in our sustainable landscaping series?
Or it is next Tuesday at 7 p.m. And,
Wonderful.
it's, let's see, it's the landscaping for, hold on a minute, I'll find it, the exact title. It's landscaping for wildlife, for habitat and wildlife.
All right, landscaping for habitat and wildlife. So you can sign up for that on ANJAC's website. If you were signed up for tonight, you're already signed up for that one, so you'll get a reminder for it.
Sheila and Liz, I sent you a copy of my presentation so you could post it. Okay. I just
Thank you
did
very
that.
much.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
yeah, we'll get that recording and the presentation out to everybody in an email in a couple of days.
Wonderful. I'm gonna keep this going for another minute. There was a request, Stephen, this might be for you, to put the Pinelands Preservation Alliance website in the chat as well as the Rutgers website. So we've got the Rutgers one earlier in the chat. I'll repost that. I don't know if it was specifically for that webinar that you mentioned or not. Ah, there we
Yeah,
go.
and,
Great.
and we'll have all that on the landscapemakeover.org website soon. We're working to update that. We've got logos and all kinds of stuff going on there. So
And we can share that on our social media too, if you just give Cheryl a heads up. And I think Cheryl's here tonight, so. We try to share this information across platforms and organizations to make it easier for all of you to find. All right, with that, then I will return a whole 14 minutes to your schedule this evening. Thank you all for being here, and enjoy Tuesday night and the rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate
Bye-bye.
it. Thanks, Sheila.
Thanks a lot,
Stephen.
everybody.
Liz.
Thanks, Chris.
Have a good one.
Anytime.
Good night.
Bye-bye.